Some of the earliest gaming memories I recall are with Pokemon Sapphire. I was immediately captivated picking my starter, evolving Pokemon, competing with my rival, exploring grassy fields to caves to underwater tunnels, and defeating the gym leaders obviously. After completing Pokemon, I decided to play Mario & Luigi Partners in Time, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch, Valkyria Chronicles, the Kingdom Hearts series, a few of the Tales of games, Final Fantasy, and eventually stumbled upon Persona 5. After beating Pokemon and Mario & Luigi Partners in Time, I was convinced I experienced everything the turn-based genre offered, especially after trying Final Fantasy 13. Because I was exhausted from turn-based RPGs and I wanted to play what everyone else was playing at the time, I decided to try Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Battlefield 3 with my friends. Like many teens in the late 2000s and early 2010s, I spent my time grinding out weapons, talking shit online, unlocking skins, and stomping lobbies across multiple Call of Duty and Battlefield titles. One day when I was on YouTube, however, I saw the Persona 5 announcement trailer and my recommendations. Now, hearing a lot about the series and trying Persona 4 Golden on the PS Vita, I decided to give Persona 5 a chance, and to say this game floored me would be an understatement. Now, I know what you're thinking. Here we go with another Persona and SMT comparison, and to the people thinking this, I just need a little patience so I can bring this full circle. Anyways, I'm sure I'm not the first person introduced to Megaten through Persona. With that out of the way, let's briefly discuss Persona 5. Persona 5 immediately immersed me in its blend of dungeon crawling, social sim elements, proficiency grinding, compelling narrative spanning over 100 hours, the stylized UI, engaging turn-based combat, a great jazz and rock fusion-inspired soundtrack, and an unforgettable cast of characters make this a generation-defining experience for newcomers. I enjoyed the game so much that I bought the soundtrack, the Royal version twice across multiple platforms, and played both 4 and 3. Upon completing the Hoshino Persona games, 3 to 5 for those who don't know, I decided it was time for a break from the franchise until Atlus announced Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster, which is quite the name. I, like probably many who haven't seen SMT before, thought it was a spin-off of the Persona series since it had a lot of the Personas I've seen since Persona 5. Excited, I pre-ordered the game and eagerly awaited for its release. Launch day arrived, I played the game for a few hours and was instantly thrown off with what I was experiencing. And after completing this game over the span of a year, I can confidently report that the mainline series and other SMT spin-offs more so align with my taste in media. The best place to begin is by briefly discussing the production team, developers / overall production goals, and the reception of the SMT series at the time. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, or SMT3 or Nocturne for short, is a PS2 JRPG released in 2003 directed by Katsura Hoshino and produced by Koji Okada. Accompanying these two legends are Kazuma Kaneko producing art and designs, and Shoji Meguro, Tochiko Tasaki, and Kenichi Tsuchiya responsible for creating the music. While everyone here are legendary figures at Atlus and the JRPG subgenre, the names that will resonate most with modern Atlus fans are Katsura Hoshino and Shoji Meguro. Introducing Katsura Hoshino or Shoji Meguro is the equivalent of presenting Nobuo Uematsu. JRPG fans should know who these people are. For those who don't, a lot of modern Persona's success is attributed to Hoshino's industry-defining masterpiece, Persona 3. And while Persona 3 was his most commercially successful release at the time, his directorial oversight shouldn't be ignored with Nocturne either. Hoshino's earliest credit I could find was with SMT IF in 1994, meaning he's been supervising, directing, or producing SMT games for over 30 years now. He has almost certainly influenced or played a key role in one of your favorite Atlus releases. The other prominent figure I called out was Shoji Meguro. Something I've adored since I was a kid is music. Video games have had some truly incredible soundtracks and have gotten gamers into genres they wouldn't listen to without them. I love how music contributes to atmosphere and can add tone or provide an additional perspective to pivotal scenes, and I know I'm not alone here either. Shoji Meguro has been producing music at Atlus or as a musical consultant since 1996. Some of my favorite projects from or contributed by him are Nocturne, Digital Double Saga, Strange Journey, and Persona 3 to 5 soundtracks. The range of thematic tone across these projects with vastly different soundtracks cannot be ignored either. His versatility from Nocturne's otherworldly alternate rock with synth soundtrack to Strange Journey's horrifyingly yet beautiful orchestral score to Persona 5's jazz rock fusion composition are incredible and provides each game with their own unique identities across Atlus's repository of RPGs. As much as I would love to give all these legends a few minutes in this video, I'm already getting sidetracked, so let's pick up the pace a bit. The reason I briefly discuss these individuals is because I wanted to highlight the elite creative minds Atlus assembled to create a sequel to Shin Megami Tensei 2. For those unaware, the Shin Megami Tensei IP wasn't performing as well as Final Fantasy or a little series called Pokemon, and saw the PS2 as their best opportunity to catapult the SMT franchise into the spotlight. This initiative would lead Atlus to form one of their strongest production teams to produce one of their most critically acclaimed games, and while this game initially didn't reach Atlus's commercial goals, Nocturne would achieve cult classic status amongst JRPG fans, largely attributed to its atmosphere, the challenging combat system, and unique narrative amongst its JRPG JRPG contemporaries at the time. This game would also operate as a proof of concept for many Atlus games to this day. Nocturne's DNA can be felt throughout Digital Devil Saga, Strange Journey, the modern Persona games, and SMT4 and 5 Vengeance, which will be releasing later this year. To celebrate this game's 18th anniversary, Atlus would release the HD remaster in 2021, which would go on to sell over 1 million copies. With producer goals, critical/commercial reception, and the team covered, let's finally explore what makes SMT Nocturne a cult classic. A great place to begin is with a brief story overview to contextualize the environments and cutscenes you've been watching. I'll try my best to keep this short so we can get straight into the analysis. Nocturne finds you playing as a high schooler who arrives in Tokyo to visit your sick high school teacher, Yuko Takao, in the hospital. Arriving at the Yoyogi station stop, Isamu Nita, one of your classmates, tells you to meet him at Yoyogi Park. Upon arriving at Yoyogi, you meet a reporter named Joji Hijiri who proposes a conspiracy theory about the reported deadly riot that occurred in Yoyogi Park. Eventually, you receive a phone call from Chiaki Tachibana, your other classmate, and she tells you to meet her and Isamu at Shinjuku Medical Center. Before leaving, Hijiri says he's headed in the same direction and gives you an occult magazine featuring an article he wrote. When you arrive at the hospital, Chiaki greets you. You both agree the hospital feels strange since no one is there. Chiaki asks for the occult magazine Hijiri gave you earlier and tells you to find Isamu, who's looking around. You find Isamu on the second floor of the hospital, briefly chat, and head back to the first floor where the three of you devise a plan to search for your teacher. You begin exploring the basement, stumble across a door with a powerful presence. Proceed inside, meet Hikawa, discuss his plans for salvation, and summons a demon to get rid of you. Before this happens, Yuko Takao intervenes and says the plan is off if he kills you. He begrudgingly accepts, and Yuko instructs you to meet her on the roof. On your way to the elevator, you catch a brief glimpse of a child holding an older woman's hand. Overlooking Tokyo on the rooftop, you and Yuko discuss the conception, an event which will plunge the current world into the Vortex world, allowing someone to create a new world aligned with their morals and values. After the conception occurs, you meet God. He implores you to find a reason, while the kid and old lady you saw earlier force you to ingest a Magatama, turning you into the demi-fiend. With your newfound power, you finally step foot into the Vortex world and begin searching for your teacher and friends. With the background narrative established, let's explore some of the aspects that make Nocturne such a unique experience. With the exception of some central hubs and towns, Nocturne is a pretty introspective experience, providing players with downtime to process the ramifications of each narrative event and decisions they make throughout their journey. Most of the game finds you floating from town to town looking for your friends and teacher as they struggle to survive in the Vortex world. Even with your demon-wielding abilities and Magatama ingesting powers, you will be fighting for survival everywhere you go in the Vortex world. While there are brief moments of respite, you are largely alone as you persevere towards your next objective, accompanied with an otherworldly alternate rock soundtrack that helps make every environment feel unique. This solitude and introspective loop, accompanied with the otherworldly dark subdued soundtrack and unique dungeon aesthetics, attribute to a dread-filled oppressive atmosphere I haven't experienced in any other game. Speaking of dungeon aesthetics, let's touch on the dungeons Nocturne provides. I've never considered the key attributes of what constitutes a great dungeon until sitting down to write this essay. After completing a few SMT games and with a few dungeon crawlers under my belt, it's my understanding that good dungeons possess a unique aesthetic, atmosphere-enhancing music, a special dungeon gimmick, logically placed save points, rewards player exploration, and has a deliberate purpose behind the design. I sincerely believe, with the exception of the underground tunnels, Nocturne achieves this with flying colors. Each of the main dungeons have a specific theme or developer-intended reason for existing, and I believe the team largely achieves this with the Shinjuku Medical Center. After waking up in the basement, players will immediately explore their surroundings, may locate a locked door, and speak to a few of the souls. Eventually, you make your way to the elevator where you might be teleported to the Labyrinth of Amala for your first fights. These fights, unless you're on hard, are easy and serve as your introduction to the press turn system. After powering through and returning to the hospital, you explore, find out most of the doors are locked or blocked off as you come across a friendly pixie. The pixie says they're trying to get to Yoyogi Park and offers to accompany you while you get the annex pass to cross the skywalk and escape the hospital. Realizing the group of predators you probably came across earlier has the annex pass, you confront them and take the pass. With the pass in hand, Pixie and some of the NPCs tell you that you can recruit demons to fight with you or ask for resources. Privy to this new information, players may recruit some demons, beat Fornius, and progress the story. Many players will likely complete the dungeon in a similar or identical sequence of events. However, if we take a step back and explore a bit, we can begin to admire Nocturne's dungeon design mastery on display. Let's revisit waking up after the conception. Remember the door I brought up earlier that was locked? After crossing the sky bridge into the other wing of the hospital, inquisitive players will explore and find another pair of stairs leading them to the basement. Players will then realize they're in the same basement they woke up in, unlock the door, and create an underground shortcut linking both wings of the hospital through the basement. Additionally, skeptical players will identify a floating item outside that you can't access through the first or second floor of the hospital. After connecting the hospital's basement, players can find an unexplored path leading them directly to this item. There's also a side side quests you can find with someone that doesn't believe that you can beat Fornius. If you speak with them after beating Fornius, they'll give you Maka. Lastly, if you interact with the NPCs throughout the hospital, some of them will give you money, combat tips, items, or even foreshadow future events. I rarely see or hear people speak about the brilliance of the medical center. In one dungeon, this game provides a combat tutorial, encourages you to interact with NPCs, introduces side quests and optional content by rewarding you with cash and items, introduces shortcuts for inquisitive players, provides an additional save point, and rewards you with items for exploration. This is incredible game design and beautifully sets the tone for the dungeon quality throughout the game. Excluding the obligatory teleportation dungeon and subway tunnels, all the dungeons are expertly crafted and gradually ramp up in difficulty as you progress throughout the game. With the dungeons finally out of the way, it's time to discuss the thing everybody's been waiting for, which is of course the press turn combat system. Separating yourself from the pack is always difficult. Sega/Atlus has to compete with Square Enix, Bandai Namco, Nihon Falcom, Nipponichi Software, a small behemoth called Nintendo, and every other JRPG developer. While each of them are known for pioneering or iterating on mechanics and calling them their own, I sincerely believe that Atlus has created the single most engaging turn-based combat system that I've experienced. Your average turn-based combat system finds you targeting your enemy's weakness for additional damage, and that's about it. Sure, there's a sense of joy players get by quickly selecting heal or guard, but this is boring, too simplistic, and not very engaging overall. I, like probably many, thought they experienced all they could with turn-based combat systems and went back to playing action-focused games until experiencing the One More system. The One More system served as my gateway back to turn-based RPGs. It recontextualized everything I knew by being tactical and rewarding, and as much as I enjoyed this system, Nocturne's press turn combat resides in a tier of its own. To explain why this system is great, we need to discuss the rules of engagement. When a fight begins, you are provided press turn icons depending on the number of members in your party. Icons are consumed based on the actions you select, but this is where things get interesting. If you strike an enemy's weakness, the press turn icon will glow, indicating that half of the turn has been used. If you strike an enemy with something they nullify, you will lose 2 press turn icons. If an enemy absorbs an attack you strike them with, you will lose all of your turns. Landing a critical will consume half of a turn, and players can also pass their turns in the event they don't have a good decision. Additionally, enemies and bosses follow the same rules. Some of them even have unique moves called Beast Eye, where they can trade their press turn icons for half turns. With all the rules established, let's discuss how the Matador boss fight articulates the genius of the press turn system. Matador appears to be a very challenging boss when you first encounter him. The purpose of early bosses are generally to ease players into the system. While Atlus achieves this with other bosses, I believe Matador functions as the game's final system check. He assesses whether players are proficient enough at the combat system to actually beat the game. Upon entering the battle arena, Matador will max out his agility and most likely destroy your entire team with wind and physical attacks, since you probably can't touch him. So let's take a deep breath and a step back and devise a counter strategy for this boss. Conventional turn-based RPGs condition players to grind out levels or get new equipment. Now, while you may find success with this approach, you would also be ignoring the beauty of the press turn's flexibility. If you'd like to defeat Matador, you can grind out some levels, sure, but you can also recruit a Nozuchi to join your party, buy the Hifumi Magatama, create an Ame no Uzume through Demon Fusion, which is a mechanic we'll revisit later, apply stat buffs or debuffs, leverage Bright or Dark Might to yield guaranteed critical hits, or create a combination of these methods. Now, Nozuchi drains force, which will nullify Matador's turns after using Mazan once. The Hifumi Magatama is a Magatama that nullifies force, which will reduce his turns. Ame no Uzume nullifies force as well and learns media to heal the party. You can also use Secunda or Fog Breath to lower his evasion, or you can use Bright or Dark Might to get guaranteed critical hits, helping prolong your turn. When you consider the myriad of approaches to enemies with the plethora of demons available and your potential strategy with these synergies in mind, it's easy to see why I consider the press turn system to be the peak of turn-based combat. The system is so fast and thought-provoking that revisiting older Pokemon, older Final Fantasy, and even Persona games can feel a bit slow by comparison. Simply striking a weakness and then waiting for my turn feels archaic and unengaging after experiencing the press turn system. The system built upon a foundation of flexibility and player choice has influenced many challenge runs, unique team compositions, and other crazy accomplishments as a byproduct of the overall design philosophy. Speaking of philosophy, I believe now is a great time to revisit the narrative of Nocturne. Long-term SMT fans and I are probably numb to this, but we need to discuss how the SMT series subverts expectations from longtime JRPG fans. Ordinary JRPG narratives find you experiencing a coming-of-age story, relying on your friends, Mother Nature being angry, or a high fantasy political thriller. Nocturne and other SMT games, by comparison, are usually set in a post-apocalyptic Tokyo with a focus on creating a new world governed by the orders of law, chaos, or somewhere in between. These perspectives clash throughout the narrative as the player is expected to support one of these competing ideologies. Additionally, these philosophical perspectives, called reasons in Nocturne, are constructed with nuance and logical fallacies with the intent of causing players to critically think as they choose which ideology resonates most with their ethics and morals. With the foundation established, let's explore the reasons the game provides. I think Isamu's reason is the best place to start as he's the first classmate you interact with. Isamu immediately comes off as playful and overconfident when you meet meet him, but his real character is revealed during the Vortex world. Isamu is almost immediately captured by the mantra Nikebukuro and relies on others for his safety. After realizing that you can't protect him and finding your teacher would be difficult, he enters the Amala network for safety, acknowledges that he does not want to rely on others, and discovers the reason of Musubi. Isamu's ideology believes that all should seek truth for themselves and find solace in solitude. His ideal utopia is a world where everyone can live individually and become the center of their universe. While this reason appears great on the surface, there are a few issues with Isamu's perspective. The most obvious issue is with growth and development. Mankind has survived this long because we've been able to collaborate on ideas, innovate on established practices, and reproduce to expand the population. In Isamu's world, you kind of just exist. No personal development or advancements will occur as you can remove competing ideologies that you don't agree with, which will inevitably cause mankind to stagnate. Another hypocrisy is with Isamu's focus on solitude while relying on you to gather Makatsuhi for his reason. This isolationist philosophy of you are the center of your world and embrace solitude is great, but Isamu requiring help to achieve this solitude highlights the underlying dependency humans have on each other. If you find yourself struggling to align with Isamu's perspective, fortunately, players are provided with other philosophies to consider. Chiaki provides another perspective for the direction the world should be created. Chiaki's reason, Yosuga, believes the world is over-encumbered by too many things and wants to streamline life to the essentials. She believes the world has become stagnated as a byproduct of all the waste and excess noise in our lives. In her perspective, essential means strong, and those that are strong should be prioritized in the new world. Her experience in the Vortex world has led her down the chaos path where she subscribes to the survival of the fittest dogma. Honestly, I don't have an original thought here, so let's just be pragmatic. Creating an essential world to plunge it into constant war over who's the strongest doesn't sound sustainable or beneficial to society as a whole. I might be oversimplifying this, but I don't see the merit this world yields. Hikawa's world by comparison is a bit more nuanced and interesting in my opinion. Not much is known about Hikawa unless you wander around before the conception or progress through the labyrinth of Amala. What makes Hikawa unique is that he's the only character in the cast to enter the conception with a reason in mind. Hikawa seeks to create the world of Shijima, which is his world of silence. He uses flame as a metaphor for mankind's desire to keep expanding regardless of the damage we're causing. To curb this damage and create a more sustainable future, he believes that mankind should forfeit their free will and operate as one with no independent thought. The effectiveness of this ideology is dependent upon the leader being virtuous, which mankind is incapable of. Mankind is biased and is often in pursuit of furthering themselves through altruistic behavior, and Hikawa is no different here. Hikawa's humanity prevents him from becoming the virtuous god to rule over the system. The other clear issue is that we all must surrender our free will to become part of this system. Now, similar to Isamu's perspective, this reason will prevent democracy, engaging in philosophical discussions, and will remove art and our human identity that doesn't align with Hikawa's perspective. On the surface, this world may appear to be the best, but crumbles when critically identifying all that's lost to gain Hikawa's world. Another perspective you can support is Yuko's if it resonates with you. Yuko collaborated with Hikawa to cause the conception. After freeing her in the obelisk, she explains that she helped cause the conception because the current world is miserable. She believes mankind does not take responsibility for the issues it's created. We choose to ignore these issues and grow complacent with them instead of solutioning for them. Yuko's premature rationale was that anything is better than the current world and helped Hikawa initiate the conception as a result. However, after experiencing the Vortex world, she failed to develop a strong enough outlook to govern her reason. As a result, Yuko believes reverting the world back to before the conception occurred and giving mankind another chance is the best approach here. We'll revisit this reason later, as I think it's more fun to discuss in parallel with the demon ending. The demon ending is a bit more straightforward. The parameters required to get this ending are by rejecting every reason. By doing this, Kagetsuchi, the god of destruction, expresses his disdain for killing all the other reasons, states the Demi-Fiend cannot create a reason, and vanishes, leaving you in the Vortex world alone. I adore this ending as the developers are punishing you for being indecisive. Deciding not to decide is a choice that's detrimental to the world. This ending draws some parallels with Yuko's as well, so let's discuss them. Yuko's decision to revert the world to preconception and the demon ending are two sides of the same coin. Yuko's ending appears to be better as her ending involves everyone coming back to life, and the demon ending leaves you in a barren wasteland with the other demons. Both of these endings fail to achieve anything, essentially ending in the same result. Yuko's logic is, let's try again, while the neutral ending is pretty much I disagree with everyone. The game pitches two endings that are similar in principle with different outputs. Neither of these endings resolve anything, while one of them presents a band-aid solution to offset Yuko's indecisiveness. Nevertheless, there is an ending the fandom considers to be the best, called the True Demon Ending. The True Demon Ending is achieved after completing the Labyrinth of Amala. Upon completion, Lucifer, the little boy that transformed you into the Demi-Fiend at the very beginning, provides you with new power and tells you to get ready. Lucifer and his assistant provide additional context about the conception and how they've seen this trend across multiple universes. Exhausted of God controlling these universes and forcing worlds to go through this reincarnation phase, Lucifer wants to gather a strong army of demons to challenge God for control. My theory on why this ending is considered the best is is due to the additional content and the story implications. Some of the additional content includes a new dungeon, additional demons, bosses, cutscenes, lore, Pierce, and probably more. While the bosses and new content are fun, fleshing out Hijiri, providing additional context to Hikawa, understanding Aradia's origins, and understanding why Lucifer turns you into the demi-fiend in the beginning really expands on the Vortex world where the vanilla release was lacking. Lastly, the new endings find you defeating Lucifer in a fight. Lucifer then promotes you to general as you march towards your final battle with God to end this cycle once and for all. The reason, no pun intended, I hesitate to call this the best ending is because some players may resonate with one of the reasons and see God's treatment of the world as just. I don't want to oversimplify these reasons as they're purposefully written to cause players to digest and decide which of these outlooks line most with their personal philosophies. This overarching philosophical narrative, accompanied with the adversity players endure to survive and exist in the Vortex world, makes Nocturne a treat to revisit, and the thought-provoking endings serve as the foundation for hours of meaningful discussion. Additionally, ethically challenging media is always a treat to experience, as difficult decisions define our moral codes. While most SMT games follow a trend with their endings, from the games that I've played, Nocturne may have the best endings in terms of depth. I still need to play more SMT games, but Nocturne's endings are clearly something special. Another incredible feat this game accomplishes are with the cutscenes. The camera's cinematography and the way these cutscenes are shot are absolutely gorgeous. The use of angles and the way the camera pans across the scenes are what you see in movies. When you combine the perspective of these cutscenes with the visual storytelling on display, Nocturne becomes one of a kind. Let's use Chiaki's recent explanation as an example. Chiaki's scene opens up with her speaking with you about developments in the Vortex world and her perspective on them. As she passes you, the world turns to white and pink objects resembling a classroom with students appearing. The camera pans on the students with Chiaki cleverly placed in the background as she criticizes mankind for being distracted. While the human-like objects fade, she states how sad she is with everyone gone. As she sits at the teacher's desk, objects in her world begin to disappear as she tells you the world is full of too many superfluous things, wants to return the world to its essentials, and formally requests your support in her pursuit. Most developers would illustrate this and other recent introductions as two static characters speaking. The team developing Nocturne realized visual storytelling is of equal importance as context and created aesthetically relevant scenes to meaningfully illustrate the world each character endeavors to form, and these scenes are an absolute marvel to behold. In conjunction with the masterclass in visual storytelling on display here, the evolving world of Nocturne is special as well. Nocturne's dynamic world is largely attributed to the additional dialogue NPCs receive when major world events transpire. This mechanic can be found across Nocturne, but my favorite area depicting this is Nyx's Bar. Nyx's Bar serves as a neutral ground for NPCs to ethically debate and analyze each reason presented throughout the game. This area and other cities evolve as Hikawa, Osamu, and Chiaki become more intimate with their reasons. NPCs struggling with these perspectives alongside the player not only highlights the difficulty of decision making that's present, but also contributes to the Vortex world feeling alive with events causing perspective shifts throughout the world. Listening to NPC dialogue at Nyx's Bar throughout the narrative became one of my favorite things to do as it makes the world feel dynamic and real. With that said, there's definitely some irony in running around a world with the four horsemen of the apocalypse, Thor and Jurmakala, and then referring to it as feeling real. I guess now would be a great time to talk about your companions. Theologists have probably been in awe of the demons on display throughout this video. The use of demons as the beasts you collect and fuse to create stronger ones is always cool and almost serves as a gateway to various religious scripts and mythologies that people aren't aware of. I'm sure many of us in the Western world are familiar with the four horsemen of the apocalypse and Thor, so let's spend a little bit of time talking about Jurmakala. I was immediately captivated by how cool the design was and wondered where it came from. Most modern SMT games provide context for demons in game, but Nocturne, because it's 20 years old, doesn't have this. After a quick search on the internet, I learned that Jurmakala is a demonic elephant from Sri Lankan mythology who serves as the demon mount for Mara, who tried to prevent the Buddha from reaching enlightenment. This alone is a great way to educate players on mythology and a fascinating method of harmonizing these mythological creatures with Atlus's overall narrative. All of the demons are cool, and you'll probably find your favorites throughout the game, like any monster collecting game. With the demons out of the way, let's briefly discuss the overall gameplay loop. The only thing I haven't really touched on is recruiting demons in the Cathedral of Shadows, so let's quickly cover them. Players can recruit demons to join them during battles. While the community seems to love this, you really never know what to say other than the minimal context demons may provide. Demons, like people, have different perspectives and want to hear or be given different things in order to join you. Conversely, the Cathedral of Shadows is a place for players to register demons to the compendium, summon demons from the compendium, and fuse demons to create stronger ones. When considering the seemingly infinite possibilities of demons players can create, moves and abilities you can give demons, engaging dungeon crawling, and a thought-provoking narrative in a unique post-apocalyptic setting, it's easy to understand why this series has stayed relevant now for almost 40 years. However, Nocturne, like other pieces of media, isn't perfect and has been referred to as a cult classic since its inception. So let's dive into why this series has a niche following. A recurring theme viewers probably realize is that I've highlighted Nocturne's age throughout this video. Nocturne was released in 2003. While I don't consider this too old to play, I'm also getting older and have a soft spot for the 6th generation of consoles. The PS2 is a part of my childhood and is home to a lot of the DNA or foundational pieces for games that we have today. Games that were released 20 plus years ago also had different design philosophies, and Nocturne is no exception. Features like waypoints, objective lists, and other tools developers use to focus players are not present in Nocturne. Nocturne, like many other games in the past, demands focus from players to conquer bosses, engage with the narrative, and more importantly, where to go. For some of the younger audience, close your eyes and imagine this. Imagine being stuck in a game and you have no idea what to do. What do you usually do? Everyone at some point has been lost and just looked it up on YouTube, right? Before the internet was widely accessible and we had answers at our fingertips, you would either buy a strategy guide, talk about it with your friends at school, or speak with every NPC for a hint. Not only is this method of progression obsolete by today's standards, but modern developers and producers are scared to give players too much downtime as they're more likely to drop their game in today's hyper-competitive gaming landscape. As a result, Nocturne can feel dated at points because there are some points where the game just doesn't tell you where to go. This design philosophy rewards player exploration with side quests, additional bosses, items, and other content, but this lack of directionality and archaic design may deter players from playing the game. Another pain point with Nocturne can be its random encounters as well. I'll keep this brief because there are items and skills to temporarily eliminate random encounters, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone didn't like them anyways. Yes, they can be annoying, and yes, they can occur almost anywhere, but the game actively provides methods of temporarily reducing fights, even though most random encounters, in my opinion, are easy to manage. The last statement on Nocturne's difficulty might be a bit controversial as the game is rather infamous for its difficulty. On the topic of difficulty, let's revisit that combat. One of the beautiful things about Nocturne's press turn combat is that enemies follow the same rules and can execute similar strategies, which can be devastating. If you're comfortable with the nuances of the press turn system, exploit weaknesses, use buffs and debuffs appropriately, and strategize your party composition, you should be fine. Even with all of that said, Nocturne's combat can be punishing for players new to turn-based combat. The lack of tutorial, RNG nature of turn-based combat, and rules for players and enemies can contribute to the game feeling harder than it is. It's also worth considering that I've beaten Persona 3 to 5, SMT 3, 4, Strange Journey, and I played 5 until Vengeance was announced. I can only write about this from the perspective of someone who's played a lot of Megaten games, so I'm clearly biased here. The closest I can probably relate to Nocturne's difficulty is me having a hard time with Persona 5 when I first played it, which is so funny to think about in retrospect now that I've beaten all these other games that are considered much harder. Nocturne is a narrative with themes of creation, mankind's shortcomings, and a journey of personal introspection through suffering, to name a few. While these themes are interesting, they lack the universal appeal of a hero's journey or a coming-of-age story. Nocturne's story is also a slow burn, which runs the risk of not hooking players. Characters in Nocturnes are written to embody their ideologies. The most development they receive is assumed history before the conception occurs and your experience with them in the Vortex world. A commonly used tool in storytelling is when authors write relatable characters and stories. Relatable characters allow an audience to get into the headspace of characters so we can sympathize with them. Nocturne doesn't utilize this as characters gradually embody their reasons as the narrative progresses. Combine this with events first-time players don't fully grasp and you have a niche, slow burn story that can be difficult to initially appreciate. And as a friendly reminder, this is purely subjective. I'm sure, conversely, there were players that were immediately captivated in the world and philosophical discussion had throughout this game. Now, what's less subjective is the HD remaster quality, which we have to discuss. In May of 2021, Atlus released the HD remaster for Nocturne with mixed results. This game was released for $50 with DLC, compressed audio, a 30 FPS lock, worse lighting, and the Switch version had performance issues at launch. Excluding the Switch version, this release would have sufficed if the price was $20 to $30 and didn't have DLC. I believe the best way to experience this game is on PC with the uncompressed audio and the 60 FPS mod. With the price of $50, potential performance issues, and DLC, recommending a remaster at this price is difficult even though I consider this to be the best version of Nocturne. Taking a step back, when looking at random encounters, Nocturne's difficulty, the slow burn narrative, issues with the remaster, 2003 game design, and other problems people have with the game, it's easy to see why this game is referred to as a cult classic. Cult classics obtain their status when a piece of media appeals to a very specific demographic. Individuals within this niche should try Nocturne, but it wouldn't be a cult classic if I could recommend it to everyone. Before picking up Nocturne, it's important to consider what you're looking for in a game. Nocturne is an introspective tale focused on developing a small cast of individuals which players will most likely struggle to relate with. The game's refusal to provide directions, challenging combat, and focus on developing the world may be off-putting, sure. However, if you crave a subdued, nuanced narrative with an overarching philosophical discussion, a combat system in a tier of its own, and an artifact of brilliant game design that would be iterated upon and referenced in Atlus's games 20 years later, look no further than Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. Okay, time for the super short casual outro. So first things first, thank you anybody for watching this video, spreading it across any platform, and just clicking on the video and consuming this. Like, content creation has kind of always been like a long-term interest, but you know, admittedly this thing is very hard to do and it takes a lot of time. So appreciate anybody for watching this video and helping get my voice out there. Other group of people I wanted to shout out were a couple of my friends for helping me, 1, review the script, 2, reviewing like the video like in its pre-production phase, as well as providing channel art and just giving me any type of YouTube tips. Like, just super appreciated. And I wouldn't be here without them. Not that I've accomplished anything other than making this video that is obviously, like, you know, a big interest for me. And speaking of the video, oh my god, this video was a lot of effort. I'm like a lot of you guys where I have seen a bunch of video essays, but after sitting down and being like, yeah, I want to write, I want to record, I want to script, and I want to bring it all together and then do all this other stuff, this is a lot of work. This is quite honestly a lot of work. So, you know, I guess it's cool to see the perspective of somebody that's been like a watcher to a producer, and yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. So yeah, it's been a trip. And if there's anything else that you guys would like for me to discuss, or if you want other videos, or if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. Another thing too that I'd be very interested about hearing in the comments are everyone's relationship with Nocturne. Like, was this your first game? Did you play it recently? Was the remaster your introduction? You know, what did you think of the ending? Which endings did you go for? Just, I'd love to have a discussion with you guys, because that's the other cool thing about these videos, in my opinion. You kind of just create like an ecosystem, or like a community where people can kind of just discuss things that they're very interested about that isn't, you know, just Reddit or, you know, Twitter threads. So that's always cool. But that's all I got. Again, thanks guys for, you know, watching this video. Be sure to like to help, you know, help with the YouTube algorithm stuff. Can't speak anymore. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll check in again with y'all later. Take it easy.